The relentless African sun beat down, turning the parched earth into a cracked mosaic. A lone, tattered radio call cut through the static, sending a jolt of ice through the wildlife rescue team. Leopard down. Severe injuries, coordinates inbound. Looks bad. Immediately, the air crackled with a different kind of energy, the controlled urgency that precedes a high-stakes mission. Their specialized all-terrain vehicle, a dusty, utilitarian beast, tore across the savannah, leaving a plume of red dust in its wake. Every bump, every jar, heightened the tension inside. They knew the drill: locate, assess, and, if possible, save. But the phrase, "looks bad," when referring to a big cat, was often an understatement bordering on a death knell. Minutes stretched into an eternity before the GPS pinpointed their target. What they found was a heart-wrenching sight. Tucked precariously beneath the sparse shade of a gnarled acacia tree lay a magnificent creature, its once lustrous coat matted with grime and blood. This was no ordinary animal attack, no territorial dispute. This was something far more brutal, a raw wound festering on its flank, indicating a struggle against a formidable opponent, perhaps a rival, or even worse, human intervention. Its breathing was shallow, ragged, each gasp a visible struggle against the encroaching darkness. One eye, clouded with pain, was barely open, reflecting the bleakness of its situation. This leopard, a king of its domain, was teetering on the precipice between life and an agonizing, slow end. The immediate urgency was not just palpable, it was suffocating. Every second counted, a precious grain of sand slipping through an hourglass that was almost empty. The danger was not just to the animal, but to anyone daring enough to approach its fading, yet still formidable, wild spirit. At the helm of this dedicated team was Dr. Eleanor Vance, an American wildlife veterinarian whose name was whispered with reverence in conservation circles across the continent. Her rugged features, etched by countless hours under the unforgiving sun, bore witness to a life lived on the front lines of animal protection. Her eyes, however, held a depth of compassion that belied her tough exterior. Eleanor had traded the sterile, climate-controlled clinics of the West for the perilous, unpredictable wilds of Africa, drawn by an unshakable conviction that every life, especially those of these majestic, rapidly disappearing predators, was worth fighting for. She specialized in big cats, a calling that demanded not just scientific acumen, but an almost spiritual understanding of their raw power and delicate balance. Working with a renowned African wildlife conservation organization, she had dedicated her entire adult life to protecting these animals, often putting herself in harm's way for their survival. To her, each twitch of a whisker, each subtle shift in an animal's demeanor, spoke volumes. As they cautiously approached, the initial conflict became starkly clear. The leopard, weakened by trauma and likely dehydration, was too weak to mount a full-fledged defense. Its muscles twitched involuntarily, a desperate, instinctual attempt to flee an unseen threat. Yet, even in its broken state, it remained a wild predator, an apex hunter whose primal instincts were a hair trigger. One wrong move, one sudden noise, and its last vestiges of strength could be channeled into a lethal lunge, a desperate final act of defense against perceived aggressors. Its survival absolutely hinged on immediate intervention, a rapid assessment, and precise medical care. But the risk to Eleanor and her team was immense. The thin line between savior and prey was never more apparent than in these moments, where empathy clashed with danger and a deep desire to help met the untamed, unpredictable force of nature. Their hearts hammered against their ribs, a frantic drumbeat echoing the leopard's own fading pulse. The air hung heavy with the smell of dust, blood, and impending fate. It was a race against time, against nature, and against the very wildness they sought to preserve. If you're captivated by stories of extraordinary animal rescues and the incredible human dedication it takes to save these magnificent creatures, then you absolutely need to subscribe. Join our community to witness more incredible journeys of survival and the unwavering spirit of conservation. The team moved with a practiced, grim efficiency, their faces etched with concern as they cautiously approached the stricken animal. Dr. Vance, her gaze sharp and analytical, assessed the leopard's dire condition from a safe distance, the binoculars bringing its suffering into stark focus. It was a male, mature but terribly gaunt, its powerful musculature now sunken and weak. Its fur, usually sleek and vibrant, was matted with dirt and dried blood around a ghastly gash on its flank. The wound was deep, ragged, and terribly infected, a testament to days, perhaps even weeks, of neglect. Dehydration was evident in its dull eyes and sunken flanks, and emaciation spoke volumes of its inability to hunt or even move effectively. Each shallow breath it took was a struggle, a visible tremor running through its body. Time, always a critical factor in wildlife rescues, was rapidly running out. The stifling African heat beat down mercilessly, dehydrating the creature further, while the ever-present threat of scavengers or larger predators loomed. Debates arose within the team, hushed and urgent. Some advocated for an immediate, albeit risky, direct approach to administer sedatives by hand, arguing that the leopard was too weak to pose a significant threat. Others, more cautious, insisted on using tranquilizer darts from a distance, prioritizing human safety. Dr. Vance listened intently, weighing every argument, every potential outcome. Her primary objective was the leopard's survival, but not at the cost of her team's lives. This was a finely balanced equation where experience and intuition were as crucial as scientific knowledge. The leopard's wild instincts, even in its weakened state, remained its most formidable defense. Its primal fear and pain transformed it into an unpredictable force, a coiled spring of pure, untamed nature. Even motionless, its presence commanded respect and caution. Every twitch of an ear, every low growl deep in its throat, served as a stark reminder that this was not a docile house cat. The harsh African environment compounded the challenge. The relentless sun, the thorny acacias, the rugged, unforgiving terrain, all conspired to make the rescue operation a perilous tightrope walk. Other unseen dangers, from venomous snakes to larger territorial animals, were always a possibility, adding layers of complexity to an already critical situation. Dr. Vance knew a direct connection, however fleeting, was paramount before any sedative could be administered. She spoke softly, her voice a calm counterpoint to the buzzing tension, describing the equipment and outlining a careful strategy. She decided on a cautious approach, opting for tranquilizer darts from a distance. The aim was to deliver a precise dose that would gently sedate the animal without causing further stress. She meticulously prepared the dart gun, checking the pressure, loading the dart with the calculated amount of sedative. The first attempt was fraught with difficulty. The leopard, despite its overwhelming weakness, remained surprisingly alert, its senses heightened by pain and fear. Its erratic movements, even small twitches, made a clean shot difficult. The dense bush, a labyrinth of branches and shadows, provided natural camouflage and obstructed the line of sight. Dr. Vance squinted through the scope, adjusting for wind, for angle, for the subtle tremor of her own hand. Her breath hitched as she squeezed the trigger. The dart sailed through the air, a whisper against the vast silence, but the leopard, sensing the slightest disturbance, shifted just enough. The dart struck, but perhaps not with the ideal penetration or in the perfect muscle mass to ensure rapid dispersal of the sedative. A wave of frustration, quickly suppressed, washed over her. This was not going to be easy. Indeed, it rarely was when dealing with the raw, untamed spirit of the African wilderness. The dart, an almost imperceptible streak against the dusty ochre of the plains, had unfortunately grazed the leopard's flank, embedding itself shallowly before dislodging from the stressed muscle. Its effect was minimal, barely enough to register on the animal's pain-addled synapses. Instead of sedating, it merely startled the already terrified creature. With a low, guttural snarl that seemed to tear through its emaciated frame, the leopard, a fleeting shadow of its former power, suddenly lurched. It scrambled on 3 legs, the injured paw dangling uselessly, a grotesque counterpoint to its desperate escape attempt. Eleanor watched, her heart sinking with a terrible dread, as the magnificent animal, despite its crippling injuries, clawed its way into a dense thicket of acacia and thorny scrub. Each frantic movement was a fresh wound against its already battered body, and the rustle of leaves was quickly replaced by an unnervingly heavy silence. The visual confirmation of its escape sent a chill down her spine, far colder than the dry morning air. Their narrow window of opportunity had slammed shut, and now the vast, unforgiving African wilderness threatened to swallow their chance at rescue whole. Losing it in this labyrinthine landscape meant almost certain death for the leopard, left to succumb to infection, dehydration, or worse, become an easy meal for hyenas that undoubtedly lurked nearby. "Damn it," she muttered under her breath, the frustration a bitter taste in her mouth. Her team members, having witnessed the same disheartening scene, exchanged grim glances. The sun, climbing steadily, beat down with an oppressive intensity, accelerating the dehydration for both the leopard and the team. Their radios crackled with worried whispers, relaying the stark reality. They had roughly an hour, perhaps 2, before the full heat of the day made further pursuit dangerous, if not impossible. The leopard's low body mass meant the initial dart's dosage, even if it had delivered fully, would have been tricky to calculate, but its failure now forced their hand. Eleanor knew, with a certainty that settled like a lead weight in her stomach, that a second dart from a distance was now virtually impossible. The thick undergrowth offered too much concealment, and the leopard, once spooked, would be even more elusive. A direct, close-range dart was the only viable option left. The thought sent a jolt of ice through her veins, but it was quickly superseded by a fierce resolve. This path, however, placed her and her team squarely in immediate, undeniable danger. A cornered, injured leopard, even a dying one, was still a leopard, capable of inflicting catastrophic harm with a single swipe of its paw or a snap of its powerful jaws. The ethical dilemma weighed heavily on her. Risked human lives for an animal that might, despite all their efforts, not survive anyway. Was the gamble worth the potential cost? Every fiber of her being screamed, yes. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, a fleeting kaleidoscope of past cases flashing behind her eyelids. There was the lioness, riddled with snares, that had fought her for hours before finally collapsing into sedation, only to make a miraculous recovery. Then, the elephant calf, orphaned and terrified, whose slow, painful death in her arms still haunted her quiet moments. Each success was a testament to courage and persistence. Each failure, a reminder of the fragility of life and the immense responsibility she carried. This particular leopard, with its gaunt frame and desperate flight, stirred something profound within her, a primal urge to protect, to heal, to defy the relentless march of nature's often brutal indifference. She would not let this creature become another painful memory. Not today. Not if she had anything left to give. The decision crystallized in her mind, sharp and unwavering. Eleanor turned to her team, her gaze sweeping over their anxious faces. "All right, listen up," she announced, her voice firm despite the tremor of adrenaline that had begun to thrum beneath her skin. "We're going in on foot, close range. It's the only way we stand a chance." A low murmur rippled through the group. Some of the newer recruits exchanged nervous glances, their eyes wide with a mixture of apprehension and reluctant awe. Even the seasoned field guides, accustomed to danger, shifted uneasily. Approaching an injured predator on foot was considered a last resort, a move born of desperation. This was not merely about administering a dart. It was about confronting raw, untamed instinct in its most vulnerable and therefore potentially most lethal state. "Dr. Vance, with all due respect," began Gosi, one of their most experienced trackers, his brow furrowed with concern. "The terrain is too dense. We risk cornering it, and a cornered leopard—" He left the sentence unfinished, the unspoken implications chillingly clear. Eleanor held up a hand, cutting him off gently but decisively. "I understand the risks, Kagosi. Believe me, I do. But we've exhausted our other options. That leopard won't last another hour in this heat, not with that wound and its current state of dehydration. We cannot let it die out here simply because we are afraid. My priority is getting that dart in safely, quickly. We stick to the plan." Her resolve was contagious, even against their better judgment. They knew her track record, her almost uncanny ability to bring back animals from the brink. If anyone could navigate this perilous situation, it was Dr. Eleanor Vance. She began meticulously preparing her equipment, her movements precise and deliberate. She checked the tranquilizer gun, ensuring the dart was properly loaded and the air pressure set for the optimal range. She double-checked her trauma kit, her gloves, and the satellite phone, every item a silent testament to the gravity of their mission. Mentally, she ran through every potential scenario, every contingency. What if it charged? What if the dart failed? What if she missed? She pushed the fear down, replacing it with a steely focus. This wasn't about heroics. It was about calculated risk and unwavering dedication to a life she felt morally bound to save. Each breath was a silent prayer, each movement a reaffirmation of her commitment. With a nod to Kagosi, who had reluctantly agreed to lead the way, Eleanor began their stealthy approach. The small team, consisting of Eleanor, Kagosi, and one other ranger, moved with an almost ethereal silence through the parched bush. Every rustle of dry leaves underfoot, every snap of a twig, felt magnified tenfold in the oppressive stillness. The sun, now high above, beat down relentlessly, baking the earth and turning the air into a shimmering haze. Sweat beaded on Eleanor's forehead, stinging her eyes, but she dared not wipe it away, every ounce of her concentration fixed on the task. Kagosi, a master of tracking, moved like a phantom, his eyes scanning the ground for the faintest sign, a broken branch, a disturbed stone, a drag mark in the dust. He communicated with subtle hand gestures, leading them deeper into the dense thicket where they believed the leopard had sought shelter. Each step was carefully placed, each breath shallow, as if the very act of existing too loudly might shatter the fragile tension of the moment. The air grew heavy, almost suffocating, with the scent of dry vegetation and the faint, musky odor of wild animals. Then, Kagosi froze, his hand raised. He pointed with a silent finger towards a dense clump of thorn bushes, barely visible amidst the heat haze. Eleanor peered intently, her heart hammering against her ribs. There, partially concealed, was a patch of mottled fur, a low, guttural growl vibrating through the stillness of the air, a sound of desperation and pain. They had found it. The leopard was still alive, but barely. Its labored breathing was audible now, a ragged panting that spoke of profound distress. Eleanor took a deep breath, her grip tightening on the tranquilizer gun. This was it, the moment of truth. She crept forward, inch by agonizing inch, her eyes locked onto the animal. The leopard, alert despite its weakness, suddenly lifted its head. Its eyes, the color of amber, met hers across the short, dangerous distance. For a fleeting, suspended moment, time seemed to stretch and distort. It was a raw, primal gaze, wild instinct staring down human compassion. A silent, ancient challenge. The critical decision hovered in that fragile space, poised to be made in a heartbeat. Eleanor's decision solidified with each deliberate step, the dusty earth crunching loudly under her boots in the otherwise oppressive quiet. She was acutely aware of the hushed, almost reverent movements of her small team behind her, their eyes scanning the dense bush for any sign of movement, any glint of gold amidst the camouflage. Every fiber of her being was tuned to the environment, her senses heightened, processing the rustle of a distant bird or the gentle sway of tall grasses as potential indicators. The air grew thick with a palpable tension, a heavy cloak draped over the entire proceeding. Her hand, steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins, gripped the tranquilizer gun, its single dart a tiny vessel of hope. The leopard had sought refuge beneath a gnarled acacia, its branches offering a skeletal shade. It lay partially concealed, a tawny shadow against the muted tones of the dry earth, its breathing shallow and ragged. Eleanor moved with an almost ethereal grace, her focus absolute, her mind a finely tuned instrument calculating distance, trajectory, and the animal's barely perceptible movements. She had trained for moments like these, rehearsed them countless times in her head, but the raw, unpredictable reality was always a different beast entirely. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat underscoring the gravity of the situation. Each inch closer felt like a monumental achievement, a defiance of the danger that shimmered around the injured animal like a heat haze. With agonizing slowness, she closed the distance. The world narrowed to the leopard, its labored breaths, and the unwavering resolve in her own gaze. She was now mere feet away, so close she could discern the individual hairs on its coat, the crust of dried blood around its festering wound, and the desperate wild intelligence burning in its amber eyes. It was a creature on the precipice, its life force flickering. The tranquilizer dart felt heavy in her hand, a tiny, fragile bridge between life and death. This was it, the moment of truth. Suddenly, with an unexpected, almost supernatural burst of primal instinct, the leopard's head snapped up. Its amber eyes locked onto hers, no longer dull with pain, but blazing with a terrifying, ancient fury. A low, guttural growl rumbled deep in its chest, a sound that vibrated through the very ground beneath Eleanor's feet. Its lips drew back, revealing an array of razor-sharp fangs, stained crimson from past meals, now primed for defense. Its muscles tensed, a clear warning. 4 seconds. An eternity. The world seemed to hold its breath. In that agonizing span, Eleanor faced an impossible choice. Her mind raced, a whirlwind of probabilities and consequences. Retreat now, and the leopard would undoubtedly die, a tragic end to a noble creature's life, a failure echoing in her own conscience. Push forward, administer the dart, and risk a bite that could sever tendons, crush bone, or worse, end her own life in this remote corner of Africa. The weight of that decision was immense, crushing, yet she found an anchor in her unwavering purpose. She had come too far, risked too much to turn back now. This animal deserved a fighting chance. Then, something remarkable happened. As her gaze held the leopard's, a flicker, a hesitation. Perhaps it was the unwavering compassion in her eyes, or perhaps the sheer exhaustion finally overriding its instinct to attack. Whatever the reason, in that infinitesimal fraction of a second, the ferocious snarl seemed to waver, the bared fangs remaining, but the immediate lunge did not come. It was a fragile, fleeting window of opportunity, a silent, desperate plea from one creature to another. Eleanor seized it. Her arm, a conduit for years of training and innate empathy, moved with the speed and precision of a predator. The dart found its mark, sinking into the leopard's hindquarters with a soft, almost imperceptible thud. The tension that had held her in its merciless grip for those 4 terrifying seconds shattered. A collective exhalation from her team behind her was almost audible. The leopard's eyes, still fixed on hers, softened, then glazed over as the tranquilizer began its rapid work. Its mighty head slowly, gracefully, lowered back to the dusty earth, its wild spirit temporarily subdued, its body finally surrendering to the hope of rescue. The tranquilizer, once delivered, worked with a speed that felt both terrifyingly swift and agonizingly slow. The tension that had gripped Eleanor and her team for what seemed like an eternity began to unravel, replaced by a new kind of urgency. The leopard, now a heavy, limp form, lay still, its body heaving with shallow breaths. Eleanor, moving with practiced efficiency, was the first to reach it. Her gloved hands immediately went to its neck, checking for a pulse, a flicker of life that confirmed their gamble had paid off. A sigh, barely audible, escaped her lips. "Pulse is weak but steady," she announced, her voice hoarse but firm. "Let's get a full assessment, quickly but carefully." The team, having held their collective breath, now sprang into action. One veterinarian began setting up an IV line, carefully inserting the needle into a prominent vein in the leopard's foreleg, starting a drip of saline and glucose to combat the severe dehydration. Another moved to gently examine the deep wound on its flank, a festering gash that had clearly been the source of immense pain and infection. The air, previously thick with silent anxiety, now buzzed with hushed medical instructions and the rustle of equipment. Eleanor, meanwhile, meticulously checked the leopard's eyes for pupil dilation, listened to its lungs with a portable stethoscope, and palpated its abdomen for any further hidden injuries. The animal was emaciated, its ribs starkly visible beneath its once magnificent, now dull and matted coat. Its paws were calloused and cracked, evidence of a hard life in the unforgiving wild. Antibiotics were administered swiftly, a powerful cocktail designed to fight the rampant infection already taking hold. Every movement was precise, every decision critical, as they worked against the clock to stabilize the creature before the tranquilizer began to wear off. With the initial medical intervention complete, the next challenge loomed: transport. Moving a large, unconscious predator, weighing well over 100 pounds, across the uneven, often hostile African terrain was no small feat. A specialized stretcher, designed for such emergencies, was carefully laid out beside the leopard. It was a canvas and aluminum contraption, sturdy yet flexible, allowing for the animal's weight to be distributed evenly. 4 men, strong and experienced, positioned themselves around the stretcher. Eleanor supervised, ensuring the leopard's head and spine were properly supported, minimizing any additional stress or injury during the lift. Every muscle in their bodies strained as they carefully maneuvered the heavy, inert form onto the stretcher. The journey to the waiting vehicle was slow and arduous. The thorny bushes, the loose rocks, the dips and rises in the ground, each presented a potential obstacle. The team moved in a synchronized, almost ritualistic dance, their eyes constantly scanning the path ahead, their steps deliberate. The sun beat down relentlessly, making the sweat plaster their clothes to their skin, but their focus remained absolute, their commitment unwavering. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the custom-built transport crate, specially designed for large carnivores, inside a rugged 4x4. With another painstaking effort, the leopard, still on its stretcher, was carefully loaded into the crate, secured for the bumpy ride ahead to the veterinary facility. Upon arrival at the specialized facility, nestled within a secure conservancy, a full surgical team was already waiting, their faces etched with a mixture of concern and readiness. The leopard was swiftly transferred to an operating table, bathed in the cool, sterile light of the surgical theater. Here, freed from the immediate dangers of the wild, a more thorough examination began. The deep wound on its flank was meticulously cleaned, irrigated, and meticulously stitched by a skilled surgeon. Other minor abrasions and old scars were noted, a testament to its many battles. Blood samples were taken for comprehensive analysis, and further diagnostics, including X-rays, were performed to check for any hidden fractures or internal trauma. The road to recovery for this magnificent creature, though now officially begun, was still long and fraught with uncertainty. But for the first time in days, perhaps weeks, the dying leopard had a fighting chance at life. The days that followed blurred into a meticulous routine of dedicated care and unwavering vigilance. The leopard, now affectionately named Spirit by the veterinary team, embarked on a slow and arduous recovery journey. Initially, Spirit remained in a critical but stable condition. Dr. Vance meticulously monitored its vital signs, a constant presence by its side, observing every flicker of an ear, every shallow breath. The immediate post-operative period was fraught with anxiety. Infection remained a significant threat, and Spirit's immune system, weakened by prolonged starvation and trauma, offered little resistance. Tubes delivered intravenous fluids and powerful antibiotics, maintaining a fragile equilibrium. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, small triumphs began to emerge from the relentless routine. The swelling around the wound started to recede, a clear sign the infection was being beaten back. Spirit's eyes, once dull and distant, began to hold a glimmer of awareness, occasionally tracking Dr. Vance's movements with a cautious curiosity. The first true victory came when Spirit tentatively accepted a small portion of finely minced meat, licked clean from a shallow bowl. It was a monumental step, a return of not just appetite, but also the primal instinct to survive. Each gram of food consumed was celebrated quietly by the team, a testament to their perseverance. As weeks turned into a month, Spirit transitioned from critical to stable. The tubes were removed, and Spirit began to exhibit more strength, shuffling unsteadily on its paws. The initial attempts at walking were clumsy, its hind legs still weak from disuse and the severity of its injuries. There were moments of profound concern when Spirit would refuse food or appear lethargic, each setback a painful reminder of the delicate balance of life and recovery. Dr. Vance would spend hours observing, adjusting medication, or simply offering a calming presence, her voice a low, soothing murmur. These minor regressions, though disheartening, were met with renewed determination. The team adapted, adjusting diet, therapy, and environment to coax Spirit back from the brink, each small triumph fueling their resolve. One morning, Dr. Vance arrived to find Spirit not lying in its usual huddled position, but standing, albeit shakily, at the front of its enclosure. It stretched, a slow, deliberate movement that spoke of returning strength, its tail swishing with a hint of its former grace. It was a powerful moment, a tangible sign of progress that brought a lump to Dr. Vance's throat. The wound, now a neat scar, was healing beautifully, a testament to the surgical skill and consistent aftercare. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Spirit's recovery was the gradual rebuilding of trust. Initially, Spirit would hiss and snarl at any approach, a fierce, primal warning despite its weakened state. But with Dr. Vance's patient, consistent presence, the hostility gradually softened. She would sit quietly outside the enclosure, talking softly, allowing Spirit to grow accustomed to her scent and voice. Over time, the snarling subsided, replaced by a wary watchfulness. Eventually, Spirit would tolerate her presence within the enclosure, maintaining a respectful distance, but no longer perceiving her as an immediate threat. There were even moments when Spirit would close its eyes while Dr. Vance was cleaning its enclosure, a profound sign of comfort and acceptance. This hard-won trust was a testament not just to the leopard's intelligence, but to Dr. Vance's unwavering empathy and understanding of these magnificent creatures. Spirit was beginning to remember what it felt like to be safe, to be cared for, to simply exist without constant fear. The day finally arrived, bathed in the soft glow of an African dawn, a day that symbolized not just an end, but a spectacular new beginning. The leopard, now robust and gleaming with health, paced its holding enclosure with a restless energy that spoke of rediscovered strength and untamed spirit. Its coat was sleek, muscles rippled beneath its skin, and its eyes, once dull with pain and fear, now held a sharp, intelligent focus, reflecting the wildness it was born to embody. Dr. Vance, her heart swelling with a quiet triumph, watched it from a respectful distance. Every scar, every healed patch of fur, told a story of resilience, of a battle fought and won against impossible odds. The team had meticulously chosen a remote, protected habitat within a vast conservancy, an ecosystem rich with prey and far from human encroachment, the perfect sanctuary for its reintroduction. The transport back to the wild was a much less perilous affair than its initial journey to the facility. The leopard was carefully tranquilized one last time to ensure a stress-free transfer into a specialized release crate, then loaded onto a sturdy vehicle. The drive was a pilgrimage, each mile bringing them closer to the place where this magnificent creature would reclaim its rightful place. As the vehicle rumbled through the savannah, the air thick with anticipation, Dr. Vance felt a familiar ache in her chest, the bittersweet pang of letting go, intertwined with immense satisfaction. This was the culmination of countless hours of dedicated work, of sleepless nights, and of an unwavering belief in life's capacity to heal. Upon reaching the designated release site, deep within a secluded valley, the team worked with swift, practiced efficiency. The crate was carefully maneuvered into position, the large door facing the expanse of the untouched bush. Dr. Vance approached the latch, her hand hovering over the mechanism. A collective breath seemed to be held by the small group of conservationists and rangers present, all deeply invested in this moment. With a gentle click, the latch was released. For a few tense seconds, nothing happened. The leopard remained inside, a coiled spring of instinct, assessing its newfound freedom. Then, with a powerful surge, it burst forth from the crate, a streak of spotted grace against the dusty earth. It paused, its nostrils flaring as it inhaled the scent of freedom, its gaze sweeping across the familiar landscape. Then, with an effortless bound, it vanished into the tall grass, a phantom of the wild returning home. There was no backward glance, only the undeniable pull of its true domain. A profound silence descended upon the group, broken only by the chirping of unseen birds. Dr. Vance felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and an overwhelming wave of joy. This was why she did what she did. This was the reward for every risk, every challenge, every moment of despair. Giving a magnificent creature a second chance at life, witnessing its triumphant return to the wild, was a privilege beyond words. It reinforced her belief in the critical importance of conservation and in the power of human compassion to effect profound change in the lives of these majestic animals. The bond she had formed with this leopard, the silent understanding forged in those terrifying 4 seconds, would forever be etched in her memory, a testament to the extraordinary connection possible between humans and the wildest hearts of nature. The story of this leopard, of its courage and resilience, and of the dedicated team that fought for its survival, serves as a powerful reminder. It underscores the fragility of our planet's biodiversity and the urgent need for every one of us to become advocates for its protection. Thank you for watching this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on this rescue. Your engagement helps us spread awareness and inspires more action. To continue following our work and to discover more extraordinary tales of animal rescue and conservation, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Together, we can make a difference, giving a voice to the voiceless and safeguarding the future of our planet's precious wildlife.